Can we use gaming for more than just an escape? Hey guys, thank you so much and welcome to the Game Your Future podcast. I'm Daniel and I'm joined by a special guest today, Barry Walton. Barry Walton is a video marketing expert, is a storyteller and part-time gamer. So, gosh, thank you so much and welcome, Barry. How are you doing?
Daniel, this is super cool. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate you having me on and kind of going a little bit out of your box. As we chatted earlier, I do have a little bit of a Jones for certain games more than others. Currently my son turned me on to Fortnite, which I mentioned to you. But yeah, I've been working in film and media and marketing and storytelling. And so excited to be here and just chat with your audience and connect and share more about kind of the life and times in both gaming and life in general.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Gary or Barry. Sorry.
That's all good.
And one of the so one of the first questions I have though is so video marketing expert. I guess what all does that entail, and how did you get into that? And is that even partially related to kind of your gaming history? Because I know you'd mentioned you'd play games also as a kid. Did that help influence you?
You actually might be onto something, and you actually, and this that question actually inspired me to think about like all the way back to my childhood. And when I was a kid, my parents got an Atari.
Uh-huh.
And then Atari 64 or whatever, 32, 64, I think the versions were, and then up from there. And I used to play Pitfall. I
Hmm.
was a master at Pitfall, and there was something about the repetition of Pitfall, the timing, getting past the layers, going to the next level, up to the next level, and then Pip, that kind of my mom, I think I drove her nuts because once I would start on something, I would be obsessed with it. I would be obsessed with kind of getting to that next level and kind of getting through that. And I have to pass that. And then back in those days, like you had three players and it was a lot more challenging. The lifespan didn't get extended by any means, and then you reach the end of the game and the end of the game, and I think Pitfall was a timer. It was like a 20-minute timer or something, so you had 20 minutes or something. I just
Yep.
remember doing that over and over and over again until I got through that. And you made me think about that because like as I've gotten older, what I find a great deal of satisfaction in, as and my one of my favorite things to do is edit, be an editor, a storyteller of editing documentary films, editing, commercials, editing kind of different spots for brands, is going over and over that footage and going over that moment until I get it just right, and then I can move on to the next one and the next one, and kind of then add in the music and then add in the graphics and kind of in those pieces, that repetition, that obsession with like getting it just right, I feel like definitely is connected a little bit to my gaming history, a little bit to that part of me that enjoys kind of the escape. Like I like the solitude of being in an edit bay. I like being in the dark room, excluded from people, but creating something that I know that people will appreciate, and that people will see, and that not they won't necessarily see me, but they'll see it. So I think like there's definitely a lot of parallels there because I think a lot of what a lot of what gaming is and a lot of the rewards of that is that mutual kind of divide between seclusion but doing something against other people that they appreciate, right? So it's not putting yourself directly out there, but it's putting your skills and what you love out there. So yeah, I think there's a lot there. And my history in this is I kind of went out to Hollywood in my 20s, and kind of chased the film industry, and from there established myself and just built upwards from there after working in commercials and working with celebrities and kind of having some moments there that really kind of established my skill set, that I just kind of built on it from there, and I've been building on it for 20 years. So
That's fantastic. And that's always that kind of excitement, right? To try something out, try something new, and pushing yourself. And I think that, yeah, and I wonder for you if that came from gaming, right? Because as part of a gaming and a gamer, we like to push the envelope of what's possible, especially in the game, right? And really trying to push the edges to see how can you get the most out of your experience within the game. And then we take that to the rest of our lives to say like, all right, how can I get the most out of this situation? Right. And whether that is like, I feel like as gamers, we're typically a little bit bigger risk takers as a result, or we're more willing to try these different experiences. And so you mentioned like going out to Hollywood. That's something similar to myself in the sense of like when I was in college and I got an opportunity to study abroad and over in Japan, and didn't really think too much about it, and just ended up just like saying yes and just went, right? And it went so fast that I didn't quite leave the trail that I needed to of paperwork.
Yeah.
So as far as like my university, they thought I just dropped out. And I was like, no, 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 I'm studying abroad. I'm coming back. And I had to like reapply to go back to the same school that I was in. I was like, whoops. Guess I should have taken a little bit more time to prep. But again, it's just that willingness to jump in and try something new, I think is really built into the DNA of a gamer. So that's really
No, I
cool.
think you're right a little bit. I think, when I heard you say that, I was just kind of breaking down the psychology of maybe a gamer. And I think at some level, there's this term ambiverts,
Mhm.
which is an introvert extrovert, where you kind of go between, and there might be like an impulsivity in that shift,
Yeah.
where for some people, where it's like hard in one direction and hard in the other direction. I find myself in the same way, and I also think like as gamers, we might be a little less attached to the material and the physical. So when an opportunity like what you said comes up, we're not like we're a little more secluded as people, and maybe there's a little less attachment there. So we're like, yes, for sure, I want the thrill, I want the excitement, and I'm not tied down because we're a little more ethereal in the way we think and the way we connect with the world. So I definitely think there's something to that. I mean, I've spent my life, and I was mentioning to you that, part of the reason I wanted to connect was a book that I wrote, and the Unknown Adventurer. And in that book, I basically write the premise of something similar, where it's like I've spent my entire life kind of taking those huge risks, jumping off those big cliffs and exploring something new. And I do think there might be something there where we're like, you get pent up almost energy. You spend enough time like kind of in solitude that you're like, and even though playing your games and stimulated by them, you're like, I need a huge stimulation in the real world. And you're like, okay, well, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? I'm
Yep.
doing it. I'm done. I'm doing it. And then you get over there and you're like, wait a minute, what did I just do?
Oh yeah. It's always an interesting realization when you're there and you're like, wait, what just happened? It's like, nope, this is my situation now.
Yeah, you're like,
So I'm
what?
curious.
How did I decide to do this? Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm curious, did you mention Pitfall in your book? Because that seems like that adventure might have
Oh
started
man,
there.
I should have had this interview before
I
before
know.
I wrote the book. I
Would
should
have
have
been
had
great.
this interview because I didn't. But you genuinely reminded, like one of my most distinct memories is my mom. I would just get buried in my room. I couldn't come out to eat. I couldn't, as soon as I got done eating, and my son's this way too. I see him. I told you he plays Roblox,
Hmm.
and he got me hooked on Fortnite. And he's so obsessed with it. Like he'll come out, he'll eat, and he'll go right back. And I'm like, dude, there'll be times when I have to like be like, I'm locking up the game tonight, bud. I can't just have you like come out here for 5 minutes and go back to eat. You got to hang out. You got to be social.
Yeah.
But it's funny. My that was me. My mom. That was me, and it definitely was a very instrumental part of my life. Looking back on it, but when I was writing the book, I didn't think of it. Shame on me.
Yeah. Oh well for that one. But maybe for the revised edition, maybe we'll
Yeah,
include
yeah, right,
that.
exactly. Maybe well, I think maybe I've got more books coming, so maybe there'll be a
There
gamer
you go.
edition. You know what I
Add
mean?
add a little preface or a forward, or just
Yeah.
weave it in there. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Because you're right. The just even as a kid, as we're as yeah, same with me is like developing my parents would always have to try to shut off the game, and we got to a point where like grades would even suffer. Whoops. And it's like, all right. So it was kind of the deal. It's like, all right, have you finished all your homework? Then you can play.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay. So and then you had to like check everything. Okay. Now you can play. And at least the weekends was kind of open where it's just like, all right, it's the weekend. You can have fun, do whatever. But even then, still was a little much. And my mom, she would still kick me out of the house and be like, go ride your bike, go play with your friends or whatever. It's like, you can't just be glued to this thing the whole time. And no, I think that helps too, right? You got to kind of limit it in some ways, but
Yeah,
because it
I
can get a
know
little
it does. I
excessive.
mean,
But
there's definitely a balance there, but it's easy to get lost.
yeah,
There's no better way for time to pass. I mean, you get on, and I have the same experience editing. You might get on at like eight, start editing at 8 a.m. and all of a sudden it's like 5 p.m. and you're like, wow, where did the day go?
yeah,
I went into a zone, right? And
yes.
there's few things that can capture your attention at such a level. And so, and that balance is hard. I mean, when I force my son off of it, I mean, he goes through withdrawal for sure. I can see him, he's kicking and screaming. My wife's like, "Is that normal?" I'm like, just let him be. He'll
Like,
come out.
yep.
He'll come out of it. He's just overstimmed. You got the
Yeah.
overstimulate. You're just so stimulated that you're like, okay, your brave, brainwave, have to come and settle back down, because that stimulation. So I do think there's a balance in this stuff, and that's another big thing that I talk about. And one thing that's important to me is the yin and the yang, the balance of this stuff, where
Mhm.
it's like you have to like have those moments when your brain waves are firing, but then you need to bring it back down and let yourself kind of reconnect. And that's across the board, and I could go into that more. I'm not that I'm a psychologist, but I think
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good pseudo psychologist, so I
There
know.
you go.
Yeah.
But it is really important to have that kind of balance too, right? Because it it's so easy, I think, is playing the games that we get kind of sucked into it too, and using it as that escape, right? I think a lot of gamers use it that way, right? And I've yeah,
No,
no
it's
stranger to that
true.
either. Just to say like, yeah, it's been a stressful day. I'm just going to play my games and just unwind, right?
It's a good escape too. And, everything in moderation. It's a great escape.
For
I
sure.
man, I went through a very stressful period recently. You know, where with finances, and we had a car that broke down, and there were just some like things that we've been struggling with, and I would come home days and just the only way I could get away from it was like getting on the game for an hour, and I could have that hour where I was just like none of that stuff mattered. I was just like trying to take my player and win and get to the next level, or trying to win that round or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me I'm a little bit of a Fortnite junkie, you know what I mean? I'm a little bit of, and I mean, we could get into like it being passe at different times. It's not the original. It's changed so much, different guys that are really deep into it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just like a great escape. I like to discover the weapons, pop open the chests, and I'll start with the CPUs where I'm not fighting real people, that I can fight
Yeah.
the characters that I know
There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
beat. I go into the zones where I'm like, right, there's a Star Wars phase right now, and I go into the zones where I can fight the Star Wars guys. Because some of these kids that play nowadays, I don't even stand a chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get just destroyed. So I try to avoid them as long as I can, and then I try to use what I love about that game is I try to use a lot of the kids, they go in like I want to beat as many people as I can. And for me, I'm like I want to use like military grade mentality where I'm like I'm gonna lay low, hide, snipe as many people as I can. Although I love
Right.
sniping, but always be in a position where I can ditch and run and go
Mhm.
get away from them and recover and regroup and come back out and fight again. And I do pretty good for being probably a mid-class, middle of the packer player. I do pretty good, but that's as deep dive as I'm going to go into gaming. But that's like
That's the no, that's
I feel
great.
like I have a good strategy. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
it's absolutely a great strategy, right? Like,
Oh,
I mean, in
yeah.
Fortnite, the whole point of the game is like, to be the last one standing, right? So,
Well, so that's my point. And it's funny because I have an 11-year-old son, so like I'm straddling the divide here, and my 11-year-old son, his mentality is different than mine, and I try to tell him that. And for him, it's like the point for him is like knock as many players as you can. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount of dominance to that, and you're not
yeah.
proving yourself. And for me, I'm like survive as long as possible, sneak up on people, get them when they're not looking, be able to ditch if they're too good for you, and just wait to the last minute.
That's
And
good.
I think I've done pretty good for the most. I think
No,
I actually,
I think it's a fantastic way to play it. And because again, the game is rewards that behavior, right? It's like, hey, yeah, however you get there, right? Like,
yeah,
so if the less engagement you have to do and fight other players, the less chances you have to, lose to die, the better your chances of winning.
Well, and I'm still engaging because I'm still looking for the players,
Right.
but I'm doing it in a way that I'm
Not
keeping.
taking the unnecessary risk, right?
Yeah, I'm not driving right into their battle. I'm just doing low lands or high lands and just going, where are they? They're out here
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. It reminds me of a game. Did you ever play or did you ever hear of Overwatch?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've heard of
And
this game.
because the whole object of that game is like you have to push a payload, right? So like if your characters are near the little payload, then it moves. And if you're not near it, it just sits there. And so, especially when the game first started, right, it was all but everybody did like the death matching, right? That's called. It's like just player, the players are fighting. And it's like, okay, but you win or lose based on if the payload gets to where it needs to go. And so, especially for like the first, I felt like the first like 6 months of the game was out, is that people didn't still quite get it or understand. So they'd be off fighting or whatever, and there'd be like me or just some lone person, just like one person pushing the payload, and then suddenly like game over, we won, and then everybody's like, what happened? It's like, well, you guys were off fighting. I did the objective. We actually won, and it's just like there's so many videos of that too. It's just so funny to watch. Where it's just like how did we lose? We were winning, like we were winning by a number of kills. It's like, yeah, but that's not the object of the game.
It kind of reminds me of, and you're gonna have to help me. You're gonna have to support me here because I watched this game with my son. It's the one where you're trying to guess who killed who.
Among
Uh,
Us?
what is that?
Among Us?
Yes, Among Us. Sorry.
Yep.
To your audience, I apologize. Both have a bad memory, and I'm not a would you say a hardcore gamer.
Yep.
I'm a what are the
The
bench what's it?
casual.
Casual gamer.
Yeah.
But Among Us, but I do watch a lot of the YouTube videos. And when
Hmm.
I'm listening to you talk, I watch them with my son, and I'm fast. I love the conversations, the group conversations that happen, and
Yes.
and the strategy that's going on with
All
teams,
the
you know.
manipulation to be like,
Oh, the
no.
manipulation, and then one guy kind of knows, and then one person, and then there's always like one person who gets it, but they can't get anyone else to get it with them. Like,
Uh-huh.
and you were talking a little bit about how this stuff all translates into the real world. And what I love about like games like that, or even like being strategic about Fortnite is like, in this scenario where I was saying there's one person that gets it, but they can't get other people to join with them. It's like I can relate with that on so many levels because on so many things in life where I'm like working with teams or working with groups, and I'm like, I get this, but I totally get this. I'm way ahead of you guys. And how do I get you guys to come along with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how do I get you engaged and build your trust and build teamwork and those things, team building stuff. And man, I'm definitely not an expert, but can always appreciate the people that are good at that stuff because I'm like, oh man, some people are just natural at that, you know?
Yeah. And at least gaming, I think, gives a forum for practice, right? And
Yeah.
so talking about translatable skills, right? Sometimes, especially in the corporate world, it's like, hey, you need to practice these skills, right? And um, yeah, for those that haven't heard the story, and to let you know, like I came from the corporate world, like a 15-year doing like corporate supply chain, right? And that was kind of the thing where it was just like, yeah, there were definitely times where I felt way ahead. And it's like, how do I get people to understand? And not knowing like how to do that, and then like being told like, oh, you just don't have the right skill set. And then, trying to get promoted was the big one for me. I was trying to, like move up the corporate ladder as you do. And they're like, oh, you need leadership skills. And to me, I interpret that as, oh, I don't have corporate leadership skills. But then I would go home and I would play Star Wars: The Old Republic. It was this big, millions of player MMO kind of game. And I led a guild and I led raids and we did the most difficult content in the game. And it just didn't click for the longest time to be like, oh, I'm leading my team through this game and doing this incredibly difficult content. And then it finally like clicked and I was like, wait a minute, I am a leader. It's just in a game. How do I pull those skills out?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, when I started, reframing work as a game, where it's just like, okay, well, if I was in the game, how would I do this?
Yeah.
Right. And so you obviously have to, you peel back kind of the level of the game mechanics where it's just like, all right, you can't fire your laser, you can't use a lightsaber to beat the report that you have to do. That doesn't work. No, but how do you talk to other people? How do you convince other people and like, lead these kind of teams to get to the result that you're trying to do? And sure enough, after I think it was like barely even no more than 6 months, I was able to like get a raise and a promotion just from using leadership skills I learned from a game. I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I have to do.
Man, I wish I'd realized some of that stuff when I was kind of in some of my years in the corporate world. I work for myself now, but I think what you're saying is like is spot on, and it actually makes me kind of think back through some of my experiences. And the one thing I spoke to a guy once, he was a successful composer. He did music, composed music. And I always wanted to be like a successful documentary filmmaker. I wanted to be like Herzog or you name the guys that have done well for themselves. Um, but I kind of came to this point where I was like felt like I was the guy that the garage band that never came to terms with the fact that you're not good enough to make it on the big stage, or you don't have the connections, or you didn't get out early enough, for whatever the reason. You're not going to make a living that supports you and your family and your future making documentary films, right? So you have to come to terms with it. And where I'm going with this is this. If you have a passion, albeit in this scenario, gaming, and you're like, I just want to make a living. If the way I made a living felt like this, I would take this advice, and this is what the gentleman gave me. He said, take he's like, don't try to take what you love doing with you. Take the passion with you and apply it to what you're doing, right? And I hope that makes sense, because for me it was understanding that like passion is a transferable skill. And what you said in your example was like, I turned my work into the game. I wrote the terms of what I was doing so that it matched what I loved about the game at some level, because at the end of the day, work is work. It's never going to be gaming. Gaming is gaming for a reason.
Right.
But what I love about that is like you found that you took it with you and you applied it. And there's times I look back and I'm like, I wish I had had some of those moments and had taken that with me, because I could have been very successful at different times when instead of being successful, I dropped the ball because I wanted my work to fit what I love doing instead of taking my love to my work. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm hearing
Mhm.
you say a little bit in your statement. And I think it's very valuable. And you can find a lot of purpose in that and a lot of meaning in your work in that, and still and what you said, transferable skills as well. So I mean, I think that stuff's a big
That,
part of life, man. It's a huge
yeah.
part of
Wow. That's really powerful. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it in that context. So, and I guess to help those that are trying to internalize that, to try to understand that more, yeah, I guess what would be the bad example? What if it's just like you said, like, taking that passion with you, good. Taking what you love with you, not correct. Like what
Yeah,
would be the
no, I
bad
mean, I
example?
I think the inverse of that is I hate my job. I just want to go home and game, or I just want to
Mm.
go to that sweet spot. I kept saying to even today, this was running through my head while I was today. I was like, I've spent too much of my life trying to get to my flow state. Let's call it a flow state. Flow state might be, that sweet spot when you're in a game and time flies by, right?
Yeah.
That state where you just like life makes sense here. And I'm like, I've spent too much of my life trying to get to my flow state instead of bringing it with me, right? And what I mean by
Mm.
that is like, I hate my job. I just want to get back to this. And if you say that to yourself enough, it will be your reality. But what humans don't realize is we're very programmable. And I genuinely believe that we're separate of our brain. Our brains are a tool, our bodies are a tool, and I genuinely believe Mind, Body, and Soul, all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci, the guy with the three arms. You know, I'm talking
Yeah.
about the famous guy. Mind, Body, and Soul. I think it's relevant. We live in a very post spirituality, all science age, but I think as humanity we should get our way back to mind, body, and soul, because I think I think consciousness is separate from the programmability of the brain and the functionality of the brain. And
Mm.
you have the ability to build a narrative, and you have the ability to observe what you love about gaming, observe how you endorse it for yourself, and write that script like it sounds like you did for your work, so that you're not going to work hating it, but you can gamify it, and you can gamify life at some level. And then, there's a part of this that you just have to accept the terms of life. But I'm in this spot right now where all this stuff is so important, because it's easy to get down. It's easy to get in a funk. It's easy to want to escape everything. That's not the right path. Escaping the world and just always never wanting to deal with it, never wanting to be out there. That the outcome of that, you have to play that out, the math out. That's just not a good equation long term. What's a
Right.
fulfilling life? That's not the equation for of fulfilling life.
And to give the gaming analogy, especially for like an MMO, would be like, what's the end game?
Yeah, what's the
Right?
end
Like,
game?
so once you play an MMO, right, there's the leveling phase, and then once you're max level, that's when you get to the hard content, as we call the end game. So if all you're doing is the escapism, what's the end game?
Yeah.
And you're right, and it's just this kind of, I'll just see like sad existence where nothing happens.
Well, yeah, no, and I think it's
Yeah.
important. I mean, in my mind, I imagine there's someone out there that may be struggling with some of this stuff. In my mind, there might be some, because I know I've sat and spoken to fathers and parents that talk about their kids that won't come out of their room, that spend all their days in their room. What do they do in their room? They're always gaming, can't get a job, can't get them to do. And in my mind, there's someone out there that's listening to this and is struggling with this, and looking and unfulfilled and unsatisfied, but wants to, but that's the only thing that makes sense to them, because they
Mhm.
haven't figured out how they can take all their talent and all their skills out into the real world and use that, and gamify the real world for themselves. And gamers are extremely intelligent people. They're extremely talented, extremely gifted people. They live in a world where, or maybe they don't need the validation of other people to tell them that, you know what I mean? But when they go out there, maybe they have social deficits, that they're not,
Yeah.
that they're struggling with. And, you know, I just think like, in this, there's something, there's someone out there who's like, maybe needs that message where it's like, hey, go, figure out a way to gamify life a little bit, and disconnect with how intense it may seem at times, and you'll find
Yeah.
a much better balance.
Exactly right. And that's yeah, what I love to propose on this podcast and as part of like the coaching that I do is it's not just escapism, right? It is, yeah, gaming is a great escape, yes. It's a great way to de-stress, yes. But if that's all you do, that's unfortunate, because you can, like you say, you can take that passion with you. You can take the skills with you and everything that you've learned in gaming, and you can apply it. And as you said, and what I try to teach too is to gamify other aspects of your life to make it more, not just to make it more interesting or less boring, right? Like life can be, especially work, right? Oh, it's very boring. But no, you make it much more engaging and fun. Yes, but like actually easier, right? Because you already have the skills. You're a gamer. You already have these amazing skills. And I think some of the top ones that I love is problem solving, right? Problem solving for gamers is just, it's inherently built in, right? Because that's all we do is just all these, whether it's, not even just puzzle games, but just any kind of challenge within a game, you have to overcome some kind of an obstacle, right? Whether it's, skill, trying to beat the enemy, whether it's puzzle, get over this, you're solving problems. And then when we get into the rest of the world, especially into like a corporate or some kind of a work environment, most of your job is overcoming some sort of challenge or problem. So use your problem solving. And if you
Yeah.
gamify it and put it in that context, it'll work so much easier for you.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. Um, I'm 100% with you on that. I think it's very true. Gamers are problem solvers, and they have unique skills that they need to know that are appreciated and needed. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. So for those listening, if you're a gamer, you have skills and you are needed. And we can just it's just a slight shift, just a slight change to be able to use your skills outside of the gaming to just to really get ahead.
Yep.
So
And,
cool.
and and don't be afraid to go out there and do it. And I mean, look, I mean, and we might be speaking to a large audience who just love gaming or just love listening to you. And for
Yep.
those people, I think this is just, just another opportunity to connect with people and learn about what they love, and I appreciate this. This is awesome to kind of sit here and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we kind of wind down for this particular episode, I just want to make sure that we cover as much as we can for those listening. Is there anything related to this topic, like anything that you think that we've forgotten to talk about, anything that we've missed that you wanted to make sure that is clear for the gamers to get that message out?
Well, I mean, for me, I think not a lot that we missed. For some reason, I think part of what I was going off of is I just remember, different documentaries that I've seen about the hardcore gamers,
Hmm.
and and part of me was like talking to that. And I think, for me, it's fun to just kind of talk about. It's fun to relive a little bit of the old school gaming for me. And I've made a couple. It's funny, even on my YouTube videos that we connected, me and my son made I had bought an old vintage Atari or vintage refurbished Atari, and we played Star Wars, and we made a Star Wars thing, and we made River Raid, and we made a River Raid video on YouTube, and then a couple other ones me and my son made just for fun. But no, I don't think there's anything in particular. I think it's just good to get on and connect, and the modern gaming world I'm not as in tune with, but it's just fun to kind of connect and talk about it. And as I mentioned, I wrote a book, and it has to do with adventure and travel and kind of my experiences of failing and making a lot of mistakes in life and how to fail forward at some level.
Hmm.
And I failed the third grade. I struggled with education in
Yeah.
the institution. I was always looking for kind of like a sense of self-worth. I was always looking for kind of like validation and a sense of significance in life. It was a big insecurity of mine throughout a large portion of my life. And then I finally came to a point where I started to take responsibility for myself, stopped playing the victim card, started kind of going, what do I want out of this life? And I feel like life started to turn a corner for me. And I feel like a lot of that is in that book, and it's in the story of that book. And that was part of what I had, wanted to share as well with your audience. That's not directly game related, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like in the space of just something that I'm passionate about and that I put a lot of work in an effort to kind of inspire and touch those people and those lives of young men and young women at some level that have kind of had similar experiences or have felt like they've failed a lot in life or have felt like disenfranchised by the institutions and are like, how do I build confidence? How do I get out there? What is this life about? And I feel like that book talks a little bit about all of that and takes them on a great adventure in the process.
That's fantastic. No, thank you so much for that, Barry. And I guess the only question I have then is where can people find out more? Find out more about you and the book.
Yeah, I mean, the name of the book is The Unknown Adventurer. And my name is Barry Walton. You can find it on Amazon, find it on Barnes and Noble, and I think also on Walmart and other online spaces if you Google. I have a website with all my work, Endless Media ME, which Endless Media Me.
Mhm.
and .com. And you can find links to the book. You can find links to my documentary work, my work in the industry, and all my social channels. And if you do go there, hit me up. Let me know that you saw this podcast, and I'll send you a discount code for the book.
Awesome. Well, much appreciated for that, Barry, for the listeners. So definitely check out Barry and Endless Media Me, and we'll have the links for you guys down in the description so you can get to that real quick. And definitely check out Barry and his book, The Unknown Adventurer. So
Daniel,
fantastic.
this has been a privilege, and I hope we were able to offer something to your audience.
I hope so too. So guys, definitely comment below what you learned, what you thought, any aha or realizations that you had. I'm always curious. I love those moments. So, guys, I think that'll do it for here. And if you guys want to learn more about how to also take your particular skills as gamers and really transform your lives and really try to bring that transferable skill with you wherever you go, bring that passion, definitely let me know. Check out, again, my website, dragonmorexp.com. Start your journey there. So, guys, thank you so much. And Barry, again, thank you so much for being here. This has been fantastic. And everybody else, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay awesome. And before we go, I have one more question. One more question for Barry. What
This is
is,
like the encore.
this is the encore. What is your favorite video game?
Oh, it's gonna have to be Fortnite right now. I mean, historically, my favorite video game. Oh man, I think Tetris might be historically my favorite
There you
video
go.
game. In college, I was a Tetris king. Back in college, phones and apps and all this wasn't a thing. We just had a computer room we'd go to,
Hmm.
and I would go to the college, and I ruled the computer room in the college and at the college. I had the high scores. I would go around on all the computers. I went to a relatively small
Computer.
college. I went to a relatively small college, and the computer room had maybe 20, and I would go around and hold the record on all for Tetris
That's
on.
great.
No,
Love
spatial.
that.
I wasn't the smartest kid in the room, but spatial intelligence. I could go. This goes here. This goes here. This goes. Oh man, I should have worked in a warehouse. I would have been able to pack boxes like nobody's business.
There you go.
And there's transferable skills. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Tetris for this one.
Okay, Tetris. Perfect. That's a great answer. I love that one. All right. Well, thank you again, Barry, and thank you all for watching. So stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks,
Bye.
Daniel.